The night air over Axum felt different. Caleb noticed it first. The city that once hummed with quiet life, distant drums, merchants whispering, guards shifting their spears, now sat under a strange silence. Even the wind seemed afraid to move through the tall stone obelisks. "Something's wrong," Caleb whispered. Beside him, Adavia tightened her cloak. "You feel it too." They stood on the edge of the ancient plaza, staring at the tallest stela in the city. Earlier that day, the old monk had warned them. When the shadow touches the crown of the stone, the truth buried under Axum will wake. Caleb hadn't believed him. Until now. The moon slowly climbed behind the towering monument. Its light stretched across the stone like a blade, and the shadow began to move. But shadows don't move by themselves. A low rumble shook the ground. Dust slid off the ancient carvings as the base of the monument cracked open. A hidden doorway revealed itself, something that had been sealed for centuries. Adavia stepped back. That wasn't there before. Caleb stared into the darkness below. Cold air poured out of the opening like the breath of something ancient. Then they heard it. Metal, clinking, footsteps. Someone or something was already inside. A torch suddenly lit deep within the passage, flickering against the stone walls far below. For a split second, Caleb saw symbols carved into the staircase spiraling underground. Symbols older than the kingdom itself. The monk said the kings of Axum hid their greatest secret beneath the city, Adavia said quietly. Caleb grabbed a torch from the nearby guard post and lit it. Then we're about to find out what they were hiding. They stepped inside. The stone door behind them slowly groaned and sealed shut. The staircase twisted deeper and deeper underground. The air grew colder with every step. Strange carvings lined the walls, warriors, crowns, and something that looked like a glowing sphere held above the city. Caleb stopped suddenly. At the bottom of the staircase stood 3 armored figures, not guards, treasure hunters. And in the center of the chamber behind them, a massive golden chest rested on a stone platform. One of the men turned slowly and smiled. "Well," he said, gripping his sword, "looks like we've got company." Adavia whispered, "Caleb, I don't think they plan on sharing." Caleb raised the torch, stepping forward into the chamber. "Good," he said. "I wasn't planning on asking." At the height of its power, the city of Axum was one of the most impressive urban centers in the ancient African world. Travelers and merchants arriving from the Red Sea, trade routes would have encountered a thriving city filled with stone buildings, busy markets, and towering monuments that symbolized the strength of the Axumite kingdom. These monuments, known as stelae, were among the most remarkable features of the city. Carved from massive blocks of granite, some of these structures stood more than 20 meters tall and were carefully designed to resemble multi-story buildings with carved windows and door-like patterns. The stelae served an important ceremonial purpose. Most were built above royal burial sites, marking the tombs of kings and powerful members of society. Beneath the ground were elaborate tomb chambers, constructed with carefully cut stone blocks. These underground structures held treasures, offerings, and the remains of Axumite rulers. The construction of these monuments required incredible planning and organization, showing how advanced the Axumite state had become. Skilled workers, engineers, and large labor forces worked together to carve and transport these enormous stones. Beyond the famous monuments, the city itself was well organized. At its center stood royal compounds, where kings governed the kingdom and met foreign merchants and diplomats. These compounds included large stone palaces, courtyards, and administrative buildings. Surrounding the royal areas were neighborhoods where craftsmen, traders, and farmers lived. Homes often had stone foundations with wooden upper levels, designed to handle the highland climate. Religion also shaped the city's layout. Before the kingdom adopted Christianity, temples dedicated to local gods were important centers of worship. Later, after the conversion of King Azana in the 4th century, Christian churches began appearing throughout the city. These churches gradually became central gathering places for the people. Daily life in Axum was closely connected to trade. Merchants arriving from the port of Adulis brought goods from across the Red Sea and beyond. Markets were filled with traders exchanging gold, ivory, textiles, and other goods. Because of this constant movement of people and products, Axum became a meeting point of cultures and ideas. Through its monuments, buildings, and markets, the city of Axum stood as the heart of a powerful empire and a symbol of one of Africa's greatest ancient civilizations. The monumental landscape of Axum was more than just a display of engineering skill. It reflected the political power and cultural identity of the Axumite kingdom. The towering steely fields surrounding the city served as lasting reminders of the authority of Axum's rulers. Each monument represented the legacy of a king or noble family, linking their memory to the physical landscape of the city. For the people of Axum, these structures symbolized stability, continuity, and the strength of their civilization. Archaeological discoveries suggest that the construction of these monuments required careful planning and advanced techniques. Massive granite stones were quarried from nearby hills and transported to the city using manpower, wooden rollers, and possibly animals. Craftsmen then carved the surfaces with detailed designs that imitated the appearance of tall buildings. The process of raising these stelae into a standing position was extremely difficult and likely involved ramps, ropes, and coordinated labor from large groups of workers. Beyond the stelae fields, Axum continued to develop as an important religious center. After the kingdom adopted Christianity during the reign of King Izana, churches and religious institutions became central features of the city. These buildings were places of worship, learning, and community gathering. Priests and monks helped spread Christian teachings while preserving written texts and traditions in the Ge'ez language. The city also remained closely connected to trade and diplomacy. Merchants from distant lands still traveled through Axum, bringing goods and ideas from across Africa, Arabia, and the Mediterranean. Foreign visitors often described Axum as a wealthy and powerful kingdom, noting its organized government and impressive architecture. The city served not only as a capital but also as a symbol of Axum's influence in the ancient world. Although centuries have passed since the kingdom's peak, the ruins of Axum still stand today. The stelae, tombs, and foundations of ancient buildings provide valuable clues about how this civilization once functioned. Through archaeological research and historical study, scholars continue to uncover new details about the lives of the people who built and lived in this remarkable city. Even in ruins, Axum remains one of the most important historical sites in Africa. Its monuments and artifacts remind us that this city was once the heart of a powerful empire that connected Africa to the wider world through trade, culture, and religion. For centuries, the city of Axum stood as the powerful heart of a thriving empire. Its markets were full of traders, its monuments towered over the land, and its rulers controlled trade routes that connected Africa with the Mediterranean world and the Indian Ocean. However, like many great civilizations in history, Axum eventually began to decline. The process did not happen suddenly. Instead, it unfolded slowly over generations as several different problems began to weaken the kingdom. One of the biggest challenges Axum faced was a shift in global trade routes. During its golden age, Axum benefited greatly from its location near the Red Sea. Goods traveled through the port city of Adulis and moved inland through Axumite territory. Merchants traded gold, ivory, spices, and textiles across vast distances. But as centuries passed, trade patterns began to change. New powers in Arabia and the Middle East gained control over important sea routes, reducing the influence of Axum in international commerce. Environmental pressures may also have played a role in the kingdom's weakening. Axum relied heavily on agriculture in the surrounding highlands, where farmers grew crops and raised livestock to support the population. Over time, heavy farming and deforestation may have damaged the land. Soil erosion and declining crop production could have made it harder for the kingdom to sustain its cities and armies. Political pressures added to these problems. As Axum's economic power declined, its ability to maintain control over distant territories weakened. Neighboring groups and rival kingdoms began rising in strength, creating new competition for land and resources. Without the same level of wealth from trade, Axum's rulers struggled to maintain the influence they once had. Despite these growing challenges, the city of Axum did not disappear overnight. Life continued for many people living in the region. Farmers still worked the land. Churches continued religious traditions, and the memory of the great Axumite kingdom remained strong. However, the days when Axum stood among the most powerful civilizations of the ancient world were slowly coming to an end. As the Axumite kingdom weakened, the political center of power gradually shifted away from the city of Axum. New communities and regional leaders began emerging in other parts of the Ethiopian highlands. Over time, these changes reduced Axum's role as the dominant capital of the region. Trade, which had once been the foundation of Axum's wealth, continued to decline. Merchant ships that once traveled regularly through Red Sea ports began favoring other trade networks, controlled by rising powers in Arabia and the Islamic world. As these routes shifted, the once busy commercial connections that brought wealth into Axum became less active. Markets that had once been filled with foreign traders and goods slowly lost their international importance. Even though Axum's political and economic power declined, the city remained an important religious center. Christianity had become deeply rooted in the region after the conversion of King Azana centuries earlier. Churches continued to operate, and religious leaders preserved traditions that connected the people to their Axumite past. Pilgrims and worshippers still visited the city, keeping its spiritual importance alive even as its political influence faded. Archaeological evidence suggests that many of Axum's monumental structures remained standing long after the kingdom's decline. The massive stelae, royal tombs, and stone foundations of ancient buildings continued to mark the landscape. These structures served as reminders of the city's earlier greatness and the achievements of the civilization that once flourished there. Over time, new kingdoms would rise in the region, building on cultural and religious traditions that had developed during the Axumite era. Although Axum was no longer the powerful empire it once was, its influence did not disappear. Instead, its legacy continued shaping the history and identity of the surrounding regions. Even after the fall of the Axumite Empire, the city of Axum remained one of the most historically significant locations in Africa. Its monuments, ruins, and religious traditions preserved the memory of a civilization that had once connected Africa to distant parts of the ancient world. Travelers, historians, and archaeologists have long been fascinated by the remains of the city and the mysteries surrounding its rise and decline. Today, the archaeological site of Axum is recognized as one of the most important historical locations in Africa. The ancient stela fields, royal tombs, and remnants of palaces offer valuable clues about how the Axumite kingdom once functioned. Through careful excavation and research, historians continue learning more about the people who built this remarkable civilization. Axum's legacy extends far beyond its ruins. The spread of Christianity during the Axumite era helped shape the religious traditions that still exist in the region today. Cultural practices, language, and historical identity within Ethiopia and nearby areas are strongly connected to the kingdom's past. The story of Axum reminds us that some of the world's most powerful civilizations can eventually fade from global memory. Yet even when empires fall, their achievements remain visible in monuments, traditions, and historical records. The ruins of Axum stand as evidence of a once great African kingdom that played a major role in ancient trade, culture, and religion. Although centuries have passed since Axum ruled a vast network of trade routes, the city still holds a powerful place in history. Its towering stone monuments and ancient foundations continue to tell the story of a civilization that once stood among the great powers of the ancient world. For many centuries after the decline of the Axumite Empire, the ancient city of Axum slowly faded from the awareness of the outside world. While local communities continued living in the region and preserved many of the traditions connected to Axum's past, much of the wider world no longer recognized the importance the city once held. The towering stone monuments and ruins remained standing, but the stories of the empire that built them were known mostly through local traditions and a few scattered historical writings. Early knowledge of Axum came from ancient texts, written by travelers and merchants who had visited the region during the height of the kingdom's power. Greek and Roman writers described Axum as a wealthy and influential civilization. Connected to international trade, one of the most famous records was written in a document known as the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a guide for merchants traveling through the Red Sea and Indian Ocean. This text described the port of Adulis and confirmed Axum's importance in global trade networks. However, as centuries passed, many of these historical accounts were forgotten or overlooked. It was not until later explorers and historians began studying the region that Axum's significance began to reappear in global historical discussions. Travelers who visited the area were amazed to see the massive stelae still standing in the landscape. These stone monuments were unlike anything most visitors had seen in Africa, immediately raising questions about the civilization capable of building them. When scholars began comparing the ruins with ancient writings, they realized the monuments belonged to the powerful Axumite kingdom, described in early records. This discovery helped historians piece together the story of one of Africa's most important ancient civilizations. As archaeological research expanded, historians and scientists began studying the ruins of Axum more closely. Excavations revealed the foundations of ancient buildings, royal tombs, and ceremonial spaces that once formed the center of the Axumite capital. These discoveries helped researchers understand how the city was organized and how its people lived during the height of the kingdom. One of the most impressive findings involved the famous Stele Fields. Archaeologists confirmed that many of the towering stone monuments were placed above underground tombs, belonging to kings and powerful nobles. Inside some of these tombs, researchers found chambers carefully built from large stone blocks. These rooms once held valuable objects, offerings, and items placed there to honor the dead. Coins discovered in the region also provided important clues about Axum's history. Many of these coins featured the faces of Axumite kings and inscriptions, written in the Ge'ez language. Some even included Christian symbols, helping historians confirm when the kingdom adopted Christianity. Because coins can often be dated accurately, they became valuable tools for reconstructing the timeline of the Axumite Empire. Artifacts such as pottery, tools, jewelry, and trade goods further revealed how connected Axum had been to the wider world. Items originating from the Mediterranean, Arabia, and even parts of Asia were found at archaeological sites. These discoveries confirmed that Axum had once been deeply involved in international trade networks. Through decades of excavation and research, scholars slowly reconstructed the story of Axum's rise, power, and eventual decline. Each new discovery added another piece to the puzzle of this remarkable civilization. Today, the ruins of Axum are recognized as one of the most important historical sites in Africa. The ancient monuments, tombs, and stone foundations offer a rare window into a powerful civilization that once connected Africa to distant regions of the ancient world. Historians continue studying the site, hoping to uncover more information about how the Axumite kingdom developed and how its people lived. Modern technology has also helped researchers learn more about the ancient city. Tools such as satellite mapping, ground surveys, and advanced dating methods allow archaeologists to study the area without damaging fragile ruins. These techniques help reveal hidden structures buried beneath the soil and provide new insights into how the city expanded over time. The preservation of Axum's historical remains is now considered extremely important. Efforts have been made to protect the monuments and ensure that future generations can learn from them. Visitors from around the world travel to the site to see the towering stelae and explore the remains of the once powerful capital. The rediscovery and continued study of Axum has changed the way historians understand ancient African civilizations. For a long time, many global histories overlooked the achievements of powerful kingdoms that developed on the African continent. The story of Axum proves that Africa was home to complex societies that built cities, controlled trade networks, and influenced global history. Although the empire itself eventually faded, the legacy of Axum continues to grow as historians uncover more about this extraordinary civilization. The ruins of the city remain a powerful reminder that one of the ancient world's great kingdoms once thrived in the highlands of East Africa.